Come on, Texas. Look, I don't know what you came to do, but I came to have a good time today. My name is Mickey Smith Jr. I often call myself an educator encourager. And I've had a few folks ask me, Mickey, what does educator encourager mean? Well, it means by day, I'm an educator, full-time teacher in the classroom, just like you. I teach anything from 4th grade, bless my heart, y'all. 4th grade band all the way to 12th grade. But by calling, I'm an encourager of educators and everyone just like you to keep on going. Why? Because in my life, there's never been a point in my life where I didn't have sound adults that helped show me the way. Today, I didn't come to teach. I didn't come to preach at you today. I came to remind you of something. So today, a little housekeeping before we get started. A couple things. You do more than teach. You reach. You do more than instruct, you inspire. So it's important today that you recognize and understand who you are. You can find out more on the website at mickeysmithjr.com. Find out what we're doing with music and through education to encourage our educators everywhere to get to know who they are more. I'll ask you the way I asked the students yesterday, the all-staters. Knock, knock. I am. That's the question. That's also the answer. Because at the end of the day, you can have a title, you can have a position, but do you know your name? Do you know your name? Somebody said, Mickey, who are we? Well, each and every day we have an opportunity to make this thing called teaching something more than just a lesson, but we get to make it an experience. See, a lesson lasts for a moment, but an experience, that's something that lasts for a lifetime. So today, I want to encourage you, if you hadn't already, I want to give you some tools that you can use. Today I want to encourage you, but I want to give you something you can use in your classrooms, something that will help you move the needle. If I was Oprah, I would say, you get a book, you get a book, you get a book, you get a book, but I ain't Oprah, okay? But with this wonderful QR code, I can be, so feel free to find that and enjoy those things that we have. And then also, too, if there's anything I share with you today that is of significance, I ask that if it's a blessing to you, then you be a blessing to somebody else. They got this thing called social media. It's a powerful tool, but I'm gonna be honest, the algorithm doesn't really like me because it feeds off of negativity. But if you follow me, I like to share encouragement every day. I'm not perfect, but I'm purpose, just like you. And each and every week, I try to share things that keep our educators encouraged to keep on going. So I ask that you follow me, not just for fellowship, but for fellowship, because life's better when we band together. So you can find it there. Let's stay together. Or like my man Al Green says, let's stay together, y'all. Mickey Smith Jr., this is my why. This is my who. This is my what. Each and every day, whether I'm on a stage or in a classroom, I believe, as you do, that through music, I get to play a small world in hopefully making this thing called the world a better place. And I'll be honest, my motivation is totally selfish. It's because I want a better world for my children, just as you. So today, I just want to ask you this question. Where's your focus? Where's your focus? See, focus is so important in this thing called teaching, in this thing called leading, in this thing called living. Without the right focus, we can be off focus. And that's significant because there's so much of this thing called life that we can't really see. I'll prove it to you. Do me a favor. I want you to take a moment, close your eyes, and I want you to think of your favorite teacher. I wish I had a camera right now. You can open up your eyes. Well, let me clarify. I don't want to fight in Texas today. Before I say this, you looked great before you closed your eyes. All right, Texas. But if I could be perfectly honest, when you closed your eyes, you looked better. I looked across the room, I saw softening of faces. I saw smiles. I saw a bit of joy. I saw people reflecting and thinking on individuals. But watch this. When you closed your eyes, you didn't think about a program. You didn't think about a lesson plan. You didn't think about drill charts. You didn't think about accommodations. You didn't think about IEPs, 504s. You didn't think about any of those things. You thought about the way that person made you feel. And as a musician and as a music educator, we have to understand that we do something greater than just performance. We touch the lives of people. See, what you felt when you closed your eyes, that was their sound. See, today I came out with the sax, but I'm gonna be honest with you. The saxophone is not my sound. It's just the tool that I use. My sound is my unique personal significance. Let me break it down. Today, don't tell anybody, I played hooky. And I got a text a few moments ago, and the gentleman that's subbing for me said that the kids ran to my class, and they asked, "Where is Mr. Smith?" Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I have a Grammy Award. I have multiple awards in my office. Today and no day prior to this have I ever had a kid run to my classroom and ask where my Grammy was. But on a day like today, they run to the class and they say, "Where is Mr. Smith?" See, Mr. Smith is that individual. For some children, when they close their eyes, that's who they think of. And it's not just how well I play or how well I teach, it's how I make them feel. See, it's the understanding that you do more than teach subject matter. You show students that they matter through the vehicle of music. But in order to do that, I have to say I have to be remiss. I need to start the right way. Today, if no one else has told you, you are loved, you are valued, and you're wanted. I'm looking at the faces of professionals. I'm looking at a collective of a profession that now more than ever, there's more demands put on us, but very little is poured into us. So if nobody else tells you today, you are loved, you are valued, and you are wanted. That's important because oftentimes it's the parts no one sees, the parts that no one knows. It's the work that doesn't show that makes all the difference. Who taught you that, Mickey? A third grade dropout? Lily Mae Smith. My grandmother. Matter of fact, you couldn't even call her grandma because she wasn't a milk and cookies kind of grandma. She was a grandmother. You cut her grass with a push lawnmower, it was self-propelled. You cut her grass with that push lawnmower and you finish, she say, "Here's $1.25. Sometimes I remember going to the gas station, I'd ask her for a stick of gum on the way there. She'd say, "Here's half now, and you might get half later." And she ain't had no teeth, y'all, it was free then. How you gonna be cheap with the gum that ain't got sugar in it? If you'd have told me that woman would have went out and spent $400 on an old beat up saxophone just so I could have an opportunity, I would have said, not my grandmother, but she did. And when she gave me the saxophone, she handed it to me and she said, "This is what I'm supposed to do." Who does that? I've been looking for that Hallmark card, by the way. I haven't found it yet. I'll never forget, there was one day I was out there shooting basketball, and my grandmother, she called me out of the game, which was so embarrassing when your grandmother calls you out of the game. And she's sitting on the porch and she's shelling peas, and she says, "Go in that kitchen and fetch my pocketbook." First off, could you imagine telling a kid to fetch something in 2026? That's litigation just waiting to happen. So you didn't argue back in the day. I went and looked in the kitchen for the pocketbook, and we call that the purse back in Louisiana, right? So I go in there and I'm looking around, and I don't see the pocketbook, y'all. I'm trying to get back to this game. I don't see the pocketbook. I come back out, I say, hey grandmother, I didn't see the pocketbook. She said, "Never mind." And when my grandmother said, "Never mind," that meant you were in trouble. She said, "Little boy, if I get up," Texas, look, you know I love you. Look, and I'm not just saying that. I found my wife in Texas. I'm just saying, right? My first few years teacher was in Texas, but this moment right here, That's powerful. Everybody don't understand. We're gonna catch the rest of y'all up. My grandmother said, little boy, if I get up with my rheumatoid arthritis, and if I go in that kitchen, and if I find that pocketbook, it's gonna be me and you. I heard somebody back there. I heard you. Come on. We're gonna form a support group. For the rest of you, listen, let me break this thing down. When my grandmother said it's gonna be me and you, that was not the type of inclusivity or belonging, community that we celebrate today. You didn't want that. My grandmother got up, and don't let the hobble fool you. She walked right in that kitchen. 10 seconds, she found that pocketbook. I'm not gonna tell you what happened next. I don't want to bring shame to grandma. I don't know what statute of limitations are on certain things. All I'll say is this: when you don't find the pocketbook, it's hard to sit down. But an even greater lesson I learned that has served me well, not just in music, but in life, is this. I remember going in that kitchen and my focus was on that game. My grandmother would tell me stuff like this all the time. She'd say, "You're gonna hear me now, but you're gonna listen to me later." And then you grow up. Then you get married. You have kids. You have a career. And you recognize that the third grade educated grandmother had wisdom. You're gonna hear me now, but you're gonna listen to me later. She taught me that day, other than find the purse, she taught me that sometimes we can be so busy looking that we're not actually seeing. So today, I'm not here to teach or to preach at you today. I just want to encourage you to see the sound. Do me a favor. Ask the person next to you, say, "What's your sound?" Ask the other person. If they didn't look at you right, ask the other person, say, "What's your sound?" Now somebody said, how can you see the sound, Mickey? The sound is the significance that we carry in this thing called life. It's the importance. It's not just what we value, but it's the value that we add and the value that's added to us. So my question today is, what's your sound? Mickey, where did you find your sound? I'm gonna be honest with you. I found it in the band hall. I found it with great educators from middle school all the way up through college that took time to show me that it wasn't just about the music, but it was what's within me. I found it in individuals like Derlin Paul Ancelette in middle school. It's because sometimes it's the core curriculum, but I need you to know it's the encore curriculum too. What's the encore? It's the drama, the dance, the visual arts, the music. Those are the things that makes a kid want to come back again, because statistically, I shouldn't even be in front of you today. You're looking at a C and D student. But thanks to sound educators in my life, they helped me come back and do it again. 3 years later, I went from being C and D student to being the student of the year. 4 years later, I went to be Mr. Westlake and the first in my family to go to college. I'm telling you that because if you looked at my report card, I was a C and D student. And I had N for conduct, not satisfactory. They said N, he's distracting. He makes too much noise in class. He talks too much. They said N, he's distracted. He draws too much in class. They said N, he's disruptive. He makes too much noise in class. Fast forward, I'm now an educator. I've been named Teacher of the Year 8 times. And I hold a Grammy Music Educator Award. And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you. Now I get paid to talk too much. As an award-winning illustrator, I get paid to draw too much. And as a Grammy award-winning educator, I get paid to make too much noise. What am I telling you? That sometimes the deficiencies are the superpower. I want to encourage you to look at your students again. Look at your situation again for the first time, because there's more to this thing than we can see. What keeps us from seeing the significance? What keeps us from seeing the sound? Oftentimes, it's the noise. What's the noise? It's the thing that we all encounter, regardless of our background, our demographic, our income bracket. We all face three things in life: uncertainty, pain, and constant work. I would even say that that individual that you thought of when you closed your eyes, as amazing as they are, and trust me, they are, but in the midst of their phenomenal, they had uncertainty, pain, and constant work. Yet when you were in their presence, you never felt their noise. You only saw their sound. What's your sound today? Where's our focus? Now more than ever, our young people need us to be their sound adults. Why? Because every child's one sound adult away from discovering their own sound of success. So the question is, will you be that sound to bring that change? We all have a sound. Matter of fact, I heard it when the plane landed. That's some sweet sounds when those wheels hit the ground. Sometimes I hear it when I'm driving down I-10. Don't tell the Department of Transportation. I can think back on memories when my kids were little and they would break things in the house. I'm gonna be honest with you, now that they're big, I miss the very thing I never thought I'd miss. There's a sweet sound even in the thing that we think sometimes is the most annoying thing. Matter of fact, I'm more aware, I focus, and I look for that significance in what I do to help drive what I do. I believe there's a sound in everything. I think there's a sound even when we're talking. Can you hear the sound? Even when we're talking. Let me hear you say it. Even when we're talking. Give yourselves a hand. That's all right. That's all right. Thank y'all for doing that on the fly. Mickey, why do you do that? Because so many times there's a little bit of magic even in the simplest of things. But we always have to make sure that we're aware and focused on what our sound is. Why am I stressing that with you today? Because you are more than what you do. I would even challenge you to consider that you are what you be. Now, my wife's a literacy teacher. She's cringing right now as I say that, but I'm going to double down on that bad boy. You are more than what you do. You're what you be. Now, why do I say it that way? Because I've been guilty of it. We've all been guilty of it. It's hard to stay encouraged, and it's hard to keep our cups full when our to-do list not only is endless, but it's in our constant focus. I would encourage you today not to forsake your to-do list, but can you give some time to your to-be list? Because when those kids run to your class, they're more concerned with who you be than what you do. But oftentimes, the first thing we sacrifice is our being. I believe that's the reason we're called human beings and not human doings. To be or not to be, that's not the question, that's the answer. So as you focus on who you are, always understand whose you are. You serve a greater role. You're our children's best hope. You're our future's best hope. Mickey, who taught you that? Dia. See, Dia was, well, you know, sometimes maybe not in Texas, but sometimes there's some students, if they're absent, come on, now, I'm just saying, if they absent, might be okay. I'm just saying. I tell my students the same way my wife has told me on a couple occasions. She's looked at me, and we've been married about 25 years now, and I met her in band. You know, she played French horn, I played saxophone, proximity one, you know that thing. But I remember there was one day a few years back, she looked at me, she said, "Mickey, I love you, but I don't like you right now." And I think we have a love-like relationship sometimes with our students. Dia, I'm gonna be honest with you, she was that student you had a love-love relationship with. When she came into the classroom, I don't know, it's like the classroom, it shined a little bit brighter. But I remember on this day, waiting at the front door like I do with all my students. I usually meet them at the door. I say, "Hey, welcome to the band hall where all your dreams come true." I'll tell them something because I recognize for some kids, that may be the only time someone made eye contact with them. That may be the only time someone actually said, "Hello, how are you doing today?" So I'm at the door and I'm like, "Welcome to the band hall." I'm giving fist pumps because I don't shake middle school boys' hands. Another talk for another day. And I see Dia out in the distance, and I look at her and I say, "Hey, what's happening with her? Her head is hung low." Normally Dia's the first one in line. She's like got the energy, but she's just kind of walking to class like this. I looked at her in the distance and I said, hey, I see you." She never picked her hand up. So not to be outdone, I got down on one knee. I said, "Hey, Miss Jones, I see you. Put a smile on your face." And as she approached me, she kind of picked her head up, a little smirk, and then she walked into the band hall. Nothing amazing happened. There was nothing exceptional about that day. It was not like a Disney movie. Strings did not enter the moment. The heavens did not shine or open up. It was just a beautiful, ordinary day. 4 years later, maybe like probably far too many of you, I had a lot of noise in my head. I remember sitting down at the kitchen table. I didn't feel like I was making a difference. I wasn't making enough financially to support the family. And I just felt like this was going nowhere. Does anybody even really care? So I sat down to write my letter of resignation. As I wrote the letter of resignation, something said, "Mickey, check the mail that you got out of the box today." Have any of you had that junk mail that they try to pretend and make it look like it's handwritten? That's like the worst, right? So I look at the mail and I'm thinking it's that, and I realize these are actual handwritten letters. So I sit down and I open up the letters. I found out that day that there was a 12th grade English teacher at the school that we fed. She made it an assignment for her graduating seniors to think of one individual pre-K through 12th grade that made the biggest difference in their life. Teacher, cafeteria worker, custodian, crossing guard, bus driver, administrator, coach, it doesn't matter. One person. 3 students wrote me a letter saying that Mr. Smith made the biggest impact in their life. But here's the crazy part, Texas. Not one of those students continued with band. I mean, you would think. I mean, really, can we just be real? Like, you would think that they would continue with the thing I taught. But they taught me something that day. That it's not just about teaching subject matter. It's about showing them that they matter. I'm not going to tell you what all the letters said, but I will tell you one of the letters was from that little girl, Dia. And in that letter, she wrote, "Mr. Smith, you were you were tough on us, but you were always so kind at the same time, and you helped us and you showed us so much. I never forget your class. She said, I don't know if you know this or not, but in 8th grade, I was struggling. How many of you know suicide is the second leading cause of death in our young people? I didn't know that at the time. She said I was struggling. She said, I'll never forget, there was one day in particular, Mr. Smith, I remember coming to your class. On that day, I felt worthless. I felt I had no value, and I felt invisible. And on the one day where I felt completely invisible, you stood at that door and you said, I see you. I don't know why I even said those words that day. That wasn't a common thing. I don't even know that I've ever said that before, even if I've said it since. But on that day, I chose to say, I see you. She went on in that letter to explain that when she went on to high school and she would have the noise, the doubt, and she would tell herself that nobody cares, nobody would miss me. She said, no. Mr. Smith said, I see you. She said she carried those words with her. As I'm reading this letter, I'm really not that dude, but on this day, I cried. I cried all over the letter. Matter of fact, I tore up my letter of resignation for this letter of affirmation. A letter I didn't realize how much I needed at that time. I remember 2 years later, sitting down, maybe 2 or 3 years later, I'm sitting down watching TV, and I see the first baby born in the state of Louisiana. And I remember looking at that couple. I said, well, that's a cute little couple. I said, look at that little mom. And I looked closer. It was Dia. This was just prior to me getting on a plane and taking my first trip to Los Angeles. This country boy never really flew before. That was like one of my first real trips. And my first trip to Los Angeles, I find myself at the Grammys. And I get the surprise of my life. Alicia Keys, unannounced, walks up to me and holds my hand. Y'all, I could have died. Didn't have that on my bingo card that night, I'm just saying. She holds my hand on live TV. She says, we need you. That moment was very emotional for me. But it ain't because Alicia Keys said it. Not bad, but that's not the reason. I shared that story about Dia with somebody, and I remember this woman came up and said, Mickey, your story is amazing, but I don't think you understand the most significant part. I said, well, tell me. She said, ironically, when you were at that door, looking at that little girl, saying, I see you, those words, I see you, was everything she needed to keep on going. Little did you know that 4 years later, you'd be at your dining room table at your lowest, and her words, in the form of that letter, would be everything you need to keep on going. So when Alicia Keys said, we need you, it was confirmation more than affirmation. And it reminded me in that moment of how many of us need to know that we matter. I didn't come here today to teach or to preach at you today. Come on. Hey, that's what I like. I love coming home, y'all. We at home today. Because today, if you don't hear anything else, you need to hear the sound that says, we need you. We need you. And we don't just need you for what you have. We need you for who you are. You are loved. You are valued. You are wanted. If no administrator tells you, you are loved, you are valued, you are wanted. If your community doesn't tell you, you are loved, you are valued, you are wanted. If your students don't tell you, you are loved, you are valued, and you are wanted. Because on the day that I said, I see you, I didn't see the sound. I didn't hear the sound. I didn't feel it. But I feel you. My question to you today is, who are you? I believe you are that image someone has when they close their eyes one day. They will see you, but only if you keep on going. So today, I want to challenge you, but I don't want to just encourage you. I want to leave you with something today. Have you ever been in a situation where like, hey, the speaker, he told us to be the best. Well, how? I don't know, he didn't tell us. So I want to give you something that can help you. If you don't mind, and if you feel so inclined, I didn't come to make you sad, but I want to keep you glad. I want to keep you encouraged today. Take your phone out. I want you to take down a few things. These are certain things that have helped me so much and helped others, and I believe it can be a benefit and a blessing to you. I don't profess to have all the answers, but I answer the call each and every day. And I answer the call not because I am so successful, but because I am significant. Where does that significance come from? In my office, every day I walk in, I have at the top of my bookshelf a music folder, and I have my Grammy on another bookshelf. But I don't put the Grammy where I can see it. I always keep the folder. Because that folder was given to me by a grandmother. A grandmother who lost her grandson that she was raising way too soon. A little boy out in East Texas who was not the best band student in the world. Didn't light the band room on fire. Matter of fact, didn't say more than 5 words to me. But on the day we have had an approaching hurricane, we were told to evacuate. He came in. He was the last kid. He said, I came to get my B-tone, Mr. Smith. That's the most he had ever said to me. I said, well, Eddie Ray, you get your B-tone. Let's go, baby. I had to call it B-tone because the baritone, he didn't want to play it, so I had to hype it up and make it fun. Sorry, baritone, you phony, I'm sorry. I had to do what I had to do. Eddie goes and he takes that B-tone, and I had no idea that would be the last time I see Eddie, because even though the storm passed, the pain didn't. He went out that weekend, played on his ATV with some friends. The ATV fell on him and he died tragically on the scene. I had never lost a student before. I didn't understand. Grandmother asked me to play for the funeral. I played, and as I'm playing, the reality of it hit me so heavy. It's like it was pressing on my chest. I could barely breathe, and I'm trying to play the saxophone, and I'm crying. And as soon as the song finished, I rushed off the stage, and I felt a hand on my shoulder. She said, Mr. Smith, thank you so much. She says, that little boy loved you. And you know how it is sometimes. I just figured she was being polite. Eddie hadn't said more than 5 words to me. She said every day he would come home, he said, Mr. Smith said, Grandma, Mr. Smith said, well, that's just like what Mr. Smith said. It sounds like Forrest Gump. Mr. Smith, my mama said. And she was rattling off these things that she said, he said, and I knew she wasn't lying because it sounded like something crazy I would say. I teach middle school. She then goes in her pocketbook and she hands me a music folder. She says, I want you to have this. She said the kids came over multiple times that weekend to get Eddie to play. And he constantly told them, I can't play right now. I gotta practice my B-tone. I told Mr. Smith, that I would practice my B-tone. She handed me that folder. And when you walk into my office, the first thing you see is that folder. And I have it that way because, yes, I won an award that some people would call success. I tell you that because on that particular year, there were so many people vying for it, but they only selected one person. And all too many times in our profession, we can be ambitious, and there's nothing wrong with that. We can be success driven. There's nothing wrong with that. But I want to challenge you to think about the fact that there's something greater than success. Those gentlemen that came up on the stage today both spoke to the fact that there's something called significance. See, success is about being the best in the world, but significance is about being the best for the world. When you closed your eyes, you felt significance. You do more than teach, you reach hearts and minds. You do more than instruct, you inspire. I'm not telling you to put away the MPA rubric. I'm telling you to look again for the first time. Because when you see significance, then you have everything you need to fill your cup, even though you may be pouring it empty. And now more than ever, our children need those sound adults. Will you be the sound to change not only them, but their world? But the sound that you make, I want to encourage you to be intentional about it. That sound resides in you, but I need it to resonate beyond you. I need your sound to be a sound that says something. Something so powerful that only a sound adult such as yourself could say it. A sound that says, you are loved. So what does that look like? Well, for you, I believe S is this. You can jot this down. Love is a sound. S stands for see yourself beyond yourself. Each and every day, I want to challenge you. Understand generosity is your privilege. We live in a world now more than ever where people are doing this, but I want to encourage you to do this more. Do this more. See yourself beyond yourself. Ask what that kid's going through. Ask yourself, what is it like to be 12 when we teach? Never forgetting the magic that we felt. O stands for operate in optimism and excellence. Now, operate in optimism and excellence. Oh, that's one of those fake it till you make it. No. Oh, it must be faith it till you make it. No, but that's nothing wrong with it, but no. It's face it till you make it. Because what's inside of you is already greater than anything that could come against you. But you have to tap into that and know who you are each and every day. If S is see yourself beyond yourself and O is operate in optimism and excellence, then U is utilize all available resources. We moved from Louisiana to Florida, and I've never been so mad in my life because I found 9 jars of unopened peanut butter. 9, and it wasn't like the little ones, and it was big, and it was Jif, so it was like name brand. I said, we had 9 jars of Jif? We couldn't see it, so we went out and bought more. How many things are we doing that we already have in the house? I want to challenge you again to look again for the first time. If S is see yourself beyond yourself and O is operate in optimism and excellence and U is utilize all available resources, then N is nourish relationships. I've got 2 gentlemen I met backstage. They don't know it, they're mentors. I've got mentors in this very room, individuals that I've modeled myself after, musically, personally. Nobody pulls themselves up by their own bootstraps singularly. We're the result of the company we keep. So a conference like this is an opportunity to be to band together. D, when you do all those things, see yourself beyond yourself, operate in optimism and excellence, utilize all available resources, nourish relationships, now you're in a situation D. Don't stop. Keep on going. I do this little personal checklist each and every week just to make sure that I'm in tune. Because you can have a sound, but we all know that sound better be in tune. So what do we tune our sound to? 440? Well, if you want to. But I would challenge you to tune your sound to the sound of love. Love is the only thing that's going to help us in this next season. What is love in our classroom? Well, I tell my students every week, I tell them I love you. But people have perverted and manipulated love so much that we have to be careful. Did you ever think we'd live in a time where saying I love you would be a dangerous thing? So what I do is I teach my students what love means. I tell them when I say I love you, it means I care about you, I'm consistent for you, and I'm committed to you. Love is care, consistency, and commitment. And that's who you be. My wife's cringing. That's who you be each and every day as their sound adult. So today, I didn't come to teach or preach at you, but I did come to remind you of your sound. And that sound should be anchored and tuned to love. So today I will end the way that I started, with a sound that says, I will always love. Thank you so much. Continue to be the sound that changes the world. Let your classrooms be sound. Pray that your teaching is epic and that your legacy will be significant. If I can ever be of service to you, what I share with you today is what I do across the country, the school districts, campuses around our country as I continue to serve in the classroom. Never hesitate to reach out. You can find out more on the website, MickeySmithJr.com. Thank you so much.